Welcome to another episode of the First Byte podcast, your guide to topics in IT, web design, and marketing. I'm Nathan Cheatham, Director of Marketing.
I'm Eric Bjorndorf, CEO of Evernet Consulting.
And today we are talking about software vulnerabilities. So let's talk about the headlines that have come out in recent days on. So we've got the zeroday vulnerabilities. That's kind of what I'm getting into, but I want this to be beyond like just one type of announcement, which is the zeroday patches. Google Chrome had one, and Apple in recent had them, and you're the technical consultant. You've been in this space for a long time. I'm marketing, so
you're trying really hard.
I'm trying very hard to understand what all of this means, and I thought a podcast where we just kind of talk through, like, what should I be concerned about? What do we do? What do we tell our clients? And is this the only thing? Are we just looking for this type of vulnerability when it hits the news?
All right, so I think we've all been at this long enough where we've heard of software updates. We've heard of software patches, right? I mean, if you haven't, you are now. So we've been updating software now for at least 20 years. Software is constantly being kind of tested and banged against by the hackers to see how they can find their way into infect and exploit and exfiltrate data. So it's important that we keep our software up to date as soon as it comes out, so that we can, because the software vendor will hear of there's all sorts of channels and things in which the Microsoft, for example, or Apple will hear that their software has a vulnerability, right? And so it's important to keep your software up to date. Now, there are different classes of vulnerabilities that the software can have. You mentioned a term called zeroday, and that's kind of the scariest one, because a zeroday is a vulnerability in a piece of software or system that is not known about, or not known about and doesn't yet have a patch.
Okay.
So we're all internet connected now, and so if you have a zeroday vulnerability in your iPhone or in your laptop or in your Chrome web browser, all of which were in the news cycle the last 7 days or so, it's scary, because it's like it's all of a sudden like you don't have a lock on your door anymore. It's like, ooh, you're inherently vulnerable. So yeah, it's scary. The software vendors are pretty good about patching zerodays once they're publicized. Once they know about them. Although you see a headline every once in a while throwing flames at Microsoft or Apple or something for not patching a zeroday after they've known about it.
Okay.
That's anecdotal, so I don't have any examples today on that, but that's the gist of.
So to conceptualize this in a non-tech format of, just me trying to understand this, it's like you've got a house, and so you see a mouse in it. It had to come in at some point.
Yeah, okay.
And you track it to where that opening is. And then you patch it. You patch the hole.
Yeah.
And so that's essentially what we're...
That's probably more realistically what the analogy is, the mice. Because mice or rats in your house are unhealthy. You don't want to have a house full of holes, and you don't want to live with all that stuff. So that's probably a better analogy. But every once in a while, like, also imagine you got mice kind of like testing your perimeter and things like that, but also add, would be bad doers, people that are, that are testing the knobs on your doors of seeing if your doors are unlocked or if you're home, and
Gotcha.
That's a sad reality of that analogy too.
So looking at this from, we see it in the news and it says, it's a 0 day. So we know something got in. There is a vulnerability. The range of this kind of comes down to your door is wide open and there's a large sign saying "Go in here, robber," to an ant crawls in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to jump the track on your analogy here, but the concern is, the software has been discovered that there's a vulnerability, unpatched vulnerability. The hacker knows that there is not yet a patch for it, so that means nearly everyone's vulnerable. The imperative is what does what do you do about it? Unfortunately, there's not much you can do. I mean, in the corporate IT world, we have layers of security.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, you have firewalls and other governances that can insulate you from that. But, sometimes when your iPhone has a 0-day vulnerability on it, it's just kind of like wait until it gets patched, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, speaking to that from the IT side, let's talk, say, the Google 0-day, I mean, they patched it, so they talk about, but let's say there is a vulnerability possible. Maybe it's not announced. We don't know about it. It's just, just the bad people know about it. There are other layers of security, like antivirus, EDR, those kind of things that can help. What is the IT professional doing to maintain that unknown, I guess?
Well, I mean, in many cases, you're waiting for the patch and you're rolling the patch and you're using patch management. We sell a service where we actively monitor the patching of our clients' software and systems. And unfortunately, we're beholden to the availability of those patches and the robustness of that manufacturer. I say manufacturer, the software vendors, security and patching and things like that. So, sometimes there's a case where we may say, like, don't use that browser until, so Google Chrome had a 0-day exploit. And the patch came out so fast that we didn't really have a time to say, like, practically to stop using Chrome. The unfortunate thing is sometimes the information dissemination. I mean, we're connected by email to all of our clients and end users, but still, like, sometimes information can be slow on the uptake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So while officially we may say don't use this software, that function, or whatever, sometimes it's often patched before.
Right. Well, Google doesn't want it to get out that, hey, this is an open door.
Right.
Without saying, well, but we closed it.
Right.
And so, like, I would imagine there's probably 0 days out there that we don't know about that are yet to be patched.
I always got a kick out of that, because think about all the 0 days that we've heard in the news over the last couple of years or whatever. All of those 0 days existed before we knew that they existed.
Yeah.
So all of the not yet publicized or known vulnerabilities in the softwares in the future are present right now. So I always get a kick out of that. Like, there's the software's like Swiss cheese. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of, and quite frankly, like, I've been out of the hacking game. Like, I used to hack around for fun. But I don't even know what they're doing these days to hack software. I mean, I do at some level, and I won't get covered here, but they're the things that these hackers are doing with these systems are pretty amazing these days.
So when it comes to what's publicly said, is like 0-day just the general language that we would see in the news? What else is out there? Because, like, I remember, was it back when BlackBerries were a thing? They had a vulnerability with their data, and that was a big news cycle thing because everyone in the corporate world was using BlackBerries at the time. Like, what are some of the things that we should, as consumers, as people utilizing software, have our ears perked for?
I mean, on the consumer side, like I said, like, there's not really much you can do. When with an iPhone, for example, which is Apple's walled garden, you can't even switch browsers on an iPhone. Did you know that? You can download Google Chrome.
Yeah.
But the iPhone version of Google Chrome browser that you can download on an iPhone actually uses the Safari web browser.
Interesting.
It's a skinned version of the Safari web browser.
I did not know that.
Yeah, most people don't know that, but that's because Apple has like such an iron grip on their platform. It's one of the things that may make them more secure. But point is if there's proof, and the browsing technology that Apple manages and curates is called WebKit,
Mm-hmm.
and that's in their Safari browser. So if there's a WebKit vulnerability, like there's nothing you can do. So you either stop browsing the web on your iPhone until that gets patched, or you just like, I hope I don't get hit. I hope I don't get hit. Of course, there's other things that you should be doing, like I'm starting to get a real rash of spam, text spam.
Yep.
Are you getting that?
Yep.
Apple does have like a report and block feature, but it's not very robust, So you do the things that you should be doing, like don't reply to any spam, don't click any links, don't open any attachments. But there have already been some real scary attacks where just reading the message, just by virtue of like, I got a message, click it just to be like, what is this, can be the infecting act. So what can users do? Like, I'm sorry, I wish I was providing a solution, but the solution is maybe awareness right now, which is on the consumer level, especially on like an iPhone. There's not much you can do except make sure it's being patched and make sure you're doing your automatic updates. Like, I cannot get my wife to care about updating her iPhone. It's a corporately managed phone. She's just not in tune to it. She doesn't care. So how do I get, hopefully if our audience is watching, and if my wife is watching, honey, update your phone, or ask me to update your phone for you. The thing that kind of perturbs me about the iPhone too, if I can go on a little rant, is I have automatic updates enabled.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that enabled on your phone?
Yeah.
Have you still had to manually update the phone before?
Just the iOS version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to still, like, I can see the red thing go on the settings, and it's like, oh, I've got an update, and I'm sitting there looking at my setting that says update automatically. I still have to instigate updates sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wish Apple would get better at that. So there's not much a consumer can do except just do your best to heed updates.
Yeah. So in the amount of time that we've been doing this podcast, we're now talking about zeroday, but we've also talked about data breaches, which is a bad actor utilizing a vulnerability. Is this kind of the culmination of like the cybersecurity world? You're looking for the breach, you're looking for the vulnerability, and then the resulting breach that happens from it.
Well, I mean, you've got the security aspect of security, and then you've got the incident response aspect of security. So it's both. I mean, sometimes it's the same person who's securing the system is responding to the breach, and sometimes you have third parties and entire teams. And in the corporate world, there's now entire security teams within the IT team. So, and that's going to vary depending on how big your organization is.
I hear zeroday. It feels like a TM, or it's like a named thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering if there's more things, or if it's just like zeroday is just a way of calling, like, there's a hole and there's no other way of calling a hole.
It's a previously unknown hole without a patch.
Right.
So it's a vulnerability, but then, like, I'm trying to adapt the Evernet, like the panacea to it, but there is none.
No, and
we can't make the patch. We can't patch Windows. We can't patch the iPhone. We can't patch our firewalls. Like, we wait for the vendor to issue the patch. Mm-hmm. It's a nightmare when we see a zeroday. The IT department or the IT resource is the one who's we're listening all day, every single day, to the news cycle and all of the communications coming out from our vendors. And this is why we mandate all of our clients subscribe to vendor management service, which means we listen to their vendors for that one alert that says zeroday found, patch now.
Yeah. Right.
Some IT departments and historically many IT departments would drag their feet on patches from Microsoft because they would have to test the patch in the environment to make sure that the patch doesn't break some other mission critical functionality, which still is a thing. But now you wait for that 0 day. You wait literally for that like whole news cycle and all the hubbub about like 0 day patch now, which means 0 day exists. You can be exploited, infected, hacked without there's always kind of a qualifier of what has to happen in order for the attack to transpire. But then you also see in that news cycle, what do they say? They say observed exploitation, so they see like the 0 day is being actively exploited, So a lot of times they find 0 day vulnerabilities that they haven't seen exploited. That's usually the case.
Okay.
Like it's usually a hacker or Apple or the company themselves because they do their own security testing internally.
Right. A lot of times I don't know this, other than just general experience, general knowledge, but they'll hire hackers or people that can hack. What is it, like black hat?
There's white hat, black hat,
yeah.
And there's like I think red hat. So there's different. So basically, you have a piece of software, Microsoft Windows, right? Microsoft's doing their own internal testing and banging against their own software to see if they can find any vulnerabilities. But they also have a community of white hat hackers that, for fun and various other reasons, like you might have like the whole antivirus community have a subset of teams that are trying to hack Microsoft because they can sell their antivirus software to protect against the hacks that they found in Microsoft. But then they have a healthy relationship with Microsoft saying that while we're finding these vulnerabilities, we're notifying you of them so that you can patch them too. So that's always been. And then you've got the bad actors, I think we call those the black hat hackers or what have you, that are banging against the system to try to find the vulnerabilities so that they can exploit them.
Thinking about this, like we've kind of done the scary part of like a 0 day. There might be some out there that we don't know about yet, but it's not always being exploited. And sometimes these are being caught by people that are hired to find them so that they can kind of patch that hole before someone gets into it.
Yeah.
So there is kind of this like, yeah, it's scary, but also it's like when these come out, I'm thinking along the lines of like, how do I make sure I'm informed? I know about this thing. How scared should I be? And is there relevant information that I read through? And I think that's where you look into, was this exploited or not?
Yeah, I mean, information is key all the time. I mean, right now we're pushing security awareness training really heavily as we are antivirus. If you don't have security awareness training, you're as insecure as if you didn't have antivirus, right? That means information is key. So try to be as informed as you can. I mean, I don't know how else like Susie office worker wants to be informed about her security on her on her desktop or something, but know who your vendors are, know what mediums of communication you can receive information from them, Twitter, social, email, newsletters, that sort of thing. So you just be informed as much as you can. The service that we provide our clients is we manage their vendors for them. We listen, we keep our ear to the ground for all of these things. We're waiting 24/7 round the clock for that news alert or that whether it's on social or whether it's on through the channel through which the vendor chooses. It's not us. We can't dictate that, right? And we're waiting for that 0 day vulnerability patch available, patch right away, right? And then we're doing that for our clients, those who subscribe to patch management. And we're, through your team, we're sending out security alerts and various information. So it's just information. Be informed you can. If you can't or don't want to be, employ somebody who is going to worry about it for you.
Yeah. And on that, to take this a little to a next step here, about being informed, and it's almost, from the time that I've been with the company and what I've been experienced with cybersecurity is you got the software vulnerabilities, but there's the human vulnerabilities.
Huge.
That get exploited.
It's 50% of it. It's 50% of it. I mean, I even told you in was it the last podcast? No, maybe there's this podcast. Cybersecurity is often a lack of proper configuration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was this show or the last show, but you can have an IT vulnerability because IT misconfigured a system or security. I mean, multi-factor authentication was available long before it was widely forced upon the world,
Right.
you know? But yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things, of like if you're concerned about your security from your software, also be concerned about your own behavior and what the
Knowledge, your own
vulnerability
knowledge,
and you're bringing, because we internally subscribe to the same security awareness training that we offer our clients.
Definitely.
And majority of that is managing what you do, what you're clicking on, how you hold and use your data, your software, so that someone can't kind of socially engineer you to give them
That's the
information.
that's the exact attack vector that you should have. Yeah, I mean, social engineering is the thing that hackers do to exploit the individual. The only way to defend against it is information, is knowledge.
If you are concerned with your software or your own knowledge within cybersecurity, or for your company, go to evernetco.com. You can schedule a call with Eric, and just talk through it. He freely gives at least an hour of his time, and he will talk through what your concerns are, so at least you have a sounding board.
Yeah, definitely.
But thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like this video. Leave a comment if you have any questions on cybersecurity, and find us on all socials at EvernetCO, and visit the website evernetco.com.